The funding for this program is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the Friends of 4, 10, and 12.
Do not vote for Gary Hart just because Carole King says so, but just look at him, take a good look at him, look at his book, A New Democracy, check his position papers out, his voting record, and check out all the candidates. My message is to take this seriously enough to really put the time and energy to think about it, and then vote your heart.
Tonight, one of Gary Hart's more famous supporters joins us for a conversation. Good evening. Colorado Senator Gary Hart's presidential campaign faces another major test this weekend in Democratic caucuses in Texas. At stake, 169 delegates to the Democratic National Convention. The conventional wisdom has it that the Hart campaign is on the ropes, desperately in need of a win to stop former Vice President Walter Mondale from making the Democratic race a runaway. Some Hart supporters are already saying that the Idaho caucuses later this month are probably not winnable, despite Hart's generally favorable showing so far in the West. Nonetheless, the Idaho Hart campaign received a significant boost this week from singer-songwriter Carole King. Ms. King, who lives in Idaho, has been touring the state's college campuses this week, drumming up support for her candidate. We'll be talking about that and some other things in just a moment. Carole King talked to students and sang a little for them yesterday at Boise State University.
Thank you. Fighting for my rights, and in so doing, fighting for the rights of other people in our state, has helped me to understand a lot of the problems that people all over our country are facing. Some of those problems have come directly to my doorstep, but this has helped me to realize one very important thing. We have to stand up for our own rights, because if we don't stand up for our own rights, we can't depend on anyone else to do it for us. The point is, if you have a goal, you have to keep on trying. You have to go for it. And in the meantime, one thing that I found is very helpful is if you see your goal and you visualize your success, that is more likely to happen just the way you see it. If you see the failure, that's an obstacle. Actually visualize whatever it is you want to do. You want to get into a particular graduate school, just see yourself doing it. And also it helps to have a plan B, something that might work for you if you don't get your plan A, because that takes the desperation out of your efforts. I'm here to remind you all that each and every one of you should be and can be a can-do person, because that's how you will be a will-do person.
One of Carole King's latest songs sums up the message.
My goodness, how did that piano ever get here?
Guess that really is the message, isn't it? That one voice can make a difference.
Yes.
You believe that?
Yes, I do.
Even in this day when a lot of people don't vote because obviously they think it doesn't make much difference,
Yes,
one vote.
many people do feel that way, and especially in this day, it's important to get that message across to people. You do matter, you do count, you are important, and we all need to hear from each other.
How have you found students receptive to that message?
Very receptive. I find many students come in to hear me speak, possibly to sing, and they're coming to see Carole King. They're interested in me because I'm a music personality. And when I give them the message that they do matter, they do count, and it's important to get involved, they go away saying to themselves and to me, yeah, maybe I should do something. Maybe I should get involved. And that's very rewarding.
I guess I'm a little surprised to hear you say that, because so much of what we read today about this generation of college students is that they're more concerned about a career and making money than they are about participating in the political process, let alone making a change in the political system.
I think that's basically true, and one of the reasons I support Senator Hart's candidacy is because under the present leadership, the present leader of our country is concerned about, furthering his own interests and the interests of big corporate executives and things, and young people are picking up that energy. Senator Hart has a sense of integrity and a sense of commitment, and I'd like to see young people young people of all ages picking up that kind of energy.
I know, or at least I believe you've supported other candidates in the past in a fairly public way, but not like you're supporting Gary Hart. Why such an effort for him?
Because I find that I agree with Senator Hart's stand and his ideas and his programs on just about every issue. I really haven't found anything on which we differ. The primary thing, if you'll excuse the pun, the primary thing with which I agree is his integrity and his sense of honor. And where I have agreed with other politicians on certain issues, or maybe they've had a sense of integrity, I haven't felt so completely united with somebody and their values.
Do you think realistically, now politically speaking, that he has a chance at this point?
As a matter of fact, I do, and you used the words conventional wisdom before. Conventional wisdom is exactly what is the problem, I think, in the Democratic Party today. It is a party that is leaning towards the ideas of the past, and that is, again, why Gary Hart appeals to me and so many other people. He is a candidate with ideas looking towards the future, and he's already defied conventional wisdom with the early wins in New Hampshire and in many of the states in our country. And he has won. You know, it's been said that he hasn't won any primaries since March. He has won caucuses and conventions since March, but they're not called primaries, so that's sort of a little slant by some of the media.
How long have you known him?
I met him in 1972. I did a concert to benefit Senator George McGovern, along with James Taylor, Barbra Streisand, Quincy Jones, and Gary Hart was, of course, his campaign manager then. Right. Yeah. And then I haven't really seen him until this recent involvement, but I have watched his voting record as U.S. Senator from Colorado, and I've, read when he's made a statement, and everything he says is based on common sense and integrity, and I like his ideas.
One of the, again, to use the conventional wisdom for a moment, apparently he has scored some points in the last few days, last couple of weeks, by going after former Vice President Mondale on this issue of the political PAC money going into his campaign and the question about that being not only ethical but perhaps even legal. Mm-hmm. But it's also said that Senator Hart would be enjoying all of those endorsements that former Vice President Mondale now has if only he could have gotten them early on in the campaign. Not true?
Senator Hart was the first presidential candidate to refuse contributions from PACs and special interest groups. So he has let it be known that, yes, I would like to have endorsements, but I don't want them paid for by big special interests. I want to have the people, endorsing me because that's who I want to be responsive to.
Like special interests, though, like labor unions and the National Education Association has endorsed Mondale. Wouldn't Gary Hart like to have those endorsements?
I imagine he would not refuse them if they came, but only if they came with no strings attached. He's very, very clear about that. Also, may I say that when I was campaigning in Wyoming, I saw the National Education Association may have endorsed him, but people within the National Education Association, such as the superintendent of schools there, woman Lynn Simons, came out and said, I'm not going to endorse this man just because a national organization tells me to. This is true in Wyoming. I think it's largely true in the West that people like to think for themselves and don't like to be told what to do or who to vote for. So I think that may work against Walter Mondale in Idaho and all through the West.
And he really does have a chance, despite being as far behind as he appears to be at this point in terms of, the raw number of delegates that the two of them have.
Right. It is widely reported that Walter Mondale has X number and Gary Hart and Jesse Jackson have Y and Z. But the fact is that at the convention, it's really all open. And that first ballot, all the delegates that are supposed to be committed to a candidate can actually change their mind and vote a different way if they like.
Senator Hart has talked a good deal about new ideas and new approaches to American politics. What do you see in those new ideas?
Okay, for example, Let's take defense. The traditional Republican view is more defense. The traditional Democratic view is less defense. Gary's view is better defense. It's more efficient use of the funds that are already allocated for our defense, rather than spending them on huge weapons and more nuclear weapons like the MX missile. He is totally against that, for example. He would see that money used more efficiently for, say, higher military pay for our men and women who are actually out there, weapons that work in the field, just a more balanced picture and better use of the money. That's a new idea.
He's been rapped a little bit for these new ideas really not being all that new. Unfair?
Certainly parts of them are new and parts of them are based on history and his experience. He's been on the Senate Armed Services Committee, so, of course he's drawing on old knowledge and certainly old values like honor and integrity. But the ideas and the directions are new. They are untried before, but they are an alternative to the old ways, neither of which work. The Republican and the Democratic way, neither have which have worked.
He also has received a lot of press, maybe some would argue, I'm sure, more than it's deserved on the so-called character issue of how old he is, why did he change his name,
Right.
Some of those sorts of things. Unfair?
Yes. First of all, they are non-issues. It's the politics of distraction. Let's talk about these things that are of no importance. And then second of all, there was no lack of integrity in the confusion about that. Lots of people changed their names, and the military records a lot of times will show a man's age one thing and the birth certificate is another. No problem there.
How closely, I'm just curious as to how you do these appearances. Are you coordinating this with the national campaign? The appearances, for example, you've made in Idaho this week.
Yes, I am. I'm doing it through the state coordinator, Steve Shaw, who's in Nampa. I have been in touch with the national campaign headquarters all along, and in fact, this is something I have asked where I would be needed, where may I go, but I took this particular project on myself since I do live in Idaho. And my concern is to inform Idahoans and get them involved. And certainly I'm saying, be aware of Senator Hart, but I specifically do say don't vote for him just because Carole King says so. Vote for him because you feel that it's right after you've checked out all the candidates. Use your intelligence and don't just base it on something superficial.
So we can take it we can expect to see you more out on the campaign trail, as they might say.
Possibly.
Between now and the convention.
Possibly. I'm mostly, this was really the last thing I have planned, but that doesn't rule it out in the future, no.
I see.
I hope to go through till November, actually.
Are there some special particular responsibilities associated with a famous person like yourself becoming involved in political campaigns?
Most definitely. One of which is, just as I said, the disclaimer I just expressed. I realize that there are people that, if they like my music and respect me as a person, might say, yeah, well, Carole King likes him, I'll vote for him. I don't want that. I am urging them specifically to check him out for themselves, and that's a responsibility I take very seriously, to put that disclaimer out.
Are we likely to see you in Idaho more active in other political campaigns, other than a campaign on the national level?
You have probably already seen that. I'm trying to strike a balance. I do have a life that I came here to enjoy. I haven't done much work in my garden this spring, for example, and, I came here to sort of get away from national attention and involvement. At the same time, I am concerned with making this world a better world, and Idaho the best possible place for Idahoans to enjoy, and people from all over. And I've become involved with the wilderness issue, for example. I felt that Senator McClure was not fairly presenting the picture to the Idaho people, and I have expressed my views at 2 of his hearings, one in Washington. I'm involved in the peace movement. In fact, there will be an event on May 20th at Boise High Auditorium. It's entitled with that song, One Small a 2-to-1 majority of Idahoans showed up at the hearings to testify in favor of more wilderness. Senator McClure tended to ignore that or distort it when he presented that. I've heard some people say, yes, well, many of us, wrote. I mean, that was taken into consideration. His mail is now running 10-to-1, according to Senator McClure himself, in favor of more wilderness. So I think he's misrepresented. Another thing is the issue of jobs. Senator McClure, and again the Idaho delegation, but primarily Senator McClure, represents that wilderness will take away jobs, and on the other hand, development will provide jobs. I live near Chalice, where there's the Cypress Mine, and that mine certainly has provided the community with some jobs, there's no question about it. But the mine is not on secure footing as to its future. The drain on the community resources and the taxes that these people who now have the jobs are having to pay to make up for the presence of the mine is of great distress to many people in that community. We have logging, the logging industry, right? The timber industry. There's federally subsidized logging, and that's what we would have. Our own taxes would go to pay for whatever few jobs would be provided by any development. And I think our wilderness is one of our greatest resources. It's what I moved here to enjoy. It's what the people that are born here go to enjoy when they go hunting and fishing. They like being near that, and I think it's important to preserve it because there's no undoing once it's developed.
I think if Senator McClure were here, he would take exception to what you've just said about the cost associated with wilderness. Obviously, there are a significant number of people in Idaho who believe that there are jobs at stake in this debate. There are jobs in the timber industry and the mining industry.
Mm-hmm. There are also jobs connected with wilderness, the tourist industry. And that's a major industry in this state. Everybody knows that. Another thing is that there are certainly jobs available, but what if, let's be dreaming for a minute, what if we could preserve the 8.5 million acres remaining as wilderness? And what if it were just totally ruled out that we would have development as in the logging and mining? There are other ways to approach problems and look for new solutions. So if it's a foregone conclusion that those possibilities are gone, surely we can come up with ideas for other jobs. And then there's the outfitters and guides. They are definitely favoring a great deal more wilderness than the senator has recommended.
Well, let me make one final argument that people who see this more the way Senator McClure and the Idaho delegation might see it would make. Idaho already has over 3 million acres protected officially forever as wilderness.
That's fantastic, and I'm very happy that that's the case, but I would like to see more. It's such a great resource, and it's renewable as it is, whereas the others they're renewable.
Why is it a great resource, in your view?
Because the human spirit, for one, is an important thing, which is often neglected by leaders who cater to the business interests that pay their campaign expenses. People are under a great deal of stress all over the country, certainly in areas of Idaho. And I realize that, as I said, jobs are important. I'm not against jobs. I just think that the jobs need to be based on things that are taking into consideration the human spirit and the joy that people feel when they are in the wilderness. And so many of us do enjoy the wilderness. Not only me, who I'm an import, right? I've been here 7 years. That's almost a native, right? But many of the natives here, are kind of up in arms. For example, again, that Cypress Mine. That Thompson Creek was a prime hunting ground, and it's gone now. The elk have, kind of died off to some extent in that area or moved, far back.
In addition to your political involvement in various issues, you've been on the front pages of a lot of newspapers in this state and across the country for your difficulties with the Forest Service.
Yes.
Near your ranch.
Yes.
Tell me the status of that situation.
Okay, first of all, it has been represented as a dispute over the status of that road. There is no dispute legally.
This is a road that cuts across your property.
Right. It's a duplicate road. There's State Highway 75, and then there's the old public road, as they call it, the old county road. When the highway was built in 1939, Custer County formally abandoned that other road. And that abandonment gave the portions of the road outside the ranch to the Forest Service and the portion within the ranch to the ranch owners. That is still the legal status of the road to this date. Now, the Forest Service personnel, among other things, urged Custer County to declare the entire road public under an Idaho state code. That statute has since been declared unconstitutional by a state judge. I sued Custer County when they declared my property public unilaterally with no due process, no hearing, no constitutional rights. That was the lawsuit. We did not seek to have the status of the road changed or declared. We don't need to. All the documents, including documents in Forest Service and county files, say that the portion within my property is my property. So that's the legal status. There is an investigation now being undertaken by the Inspector General of the Department of Agriculture of Forest Service misconduct, including harassment, denial of permits, threats, lies to us and about us and to the public that I'm blocking public access. I am not. I would never do that. I am, however, controlling who comes onto my ranch, and that's a fundamental right of all Idaho property owners, to control who comes onto their property.
So the issue has been wrongly cast.
Yes, it has.
As one of you basically saying, I'll be darned if you're going to open that gate and come across my property, right?
Basically, it's been wrongly cast that I've been blocking public access, and I am not.
Has this caused you a lot of grief?
Yes, it has. I've had people come onto my property, sometimes armed, hunters, for example, and say, we have every right to be here. Forest Service told us this is a public road, or Custer County says this is a public road, and, that's not true, and
so there is no
fun.
debate at this point about the legal status of that situation?
There is no debate in any legal arena. The only debate is just them saying, well, it's in court because we're going to bring it to court any day now. Not in court. It's been a year and a half since Judge Callister ruled that I could control who comes onto my property and told the defendants that if they question that, to bring it to state court. We are still waiting for that action.
Do you find a lot of people saying, oh, here's Carole King, she's just flew into the state, she's bought this ranch up there, now she wants to control the access to a whole lot of public territory?
Oh, you bet. That's been real hard to deal with, because sure, I am an outsider in terms of not being a native, but this is my only home. Robinson Bar Ranch is my only home anywhere, and it has been kind of hard, but people in my community are getting to know me, and I'm not out there all the time, dealing with the community. I do work in California sometimes, and the little they know about me, though, they know that I am a person of integrity and that I did not do what it has been alleged that I've done.
How much time do you actually spend up there?
Most of the time, yeah. I go down to California about maybe once a month, and when I have a major project, such as an album, I might be down there for an entire month out of the year, but most of the time I do spend on the ranch, even in the winters, which we're the first owners to ever spend the entire winter there.
Does that in some way hurt your career? I would think that it would be easier to pursue your type of work if you were close to where that work is done.
It would be easier insofar as the work goes and the proximity, but when I'm not working, what is there? There's smog and there's crowds and there's a lot of things that I prefer to live in Idaho just to not be around. And I've come to really love the people of this state, with some exceptions, of course, but if it does cost me anything in my work, and it may have, it's okay, because I need that balance.
Are you concerned at all that your political involvement could hurt your work?
I've heard tell that it might, but it doesn't concern me, because again, I'm a person, and I am an honest person, and I have certain beliefs. I don't ask people to embrace them because they're my beliefs, but I do want to be heard from, and I encourage others to be heard from. And if somebody doesn't like me because of it, what can I say?
I'm sure there are people who won't go to a Jane Fonda movie because they absolutely detest Jane Fonda's politics. Worried that they won't go to a Carole King concert because they detest Carole King's politics?
I'm not worried about it. If it happens, I guess it's probably both of our loss, but I can't help it.
I've got to ask you a couple of showbiz type questions.
Sure.
I think, frankly, there's an impression around that a lot of singers lead a pretty strange life, frankly, compared to the rest of us. Mm-hmm. Is that debunk some myths for us about that?
Well, I don't know if that's a myth. I think many singers do lead a very strange life. Certainly my life is unusual in that I don't have a 9-to-5 type of job. I have more freedom in my work, but I also have more responsibility. I have actually tried to keep as close to a normal life. Even when I was living in California, I was very involved with my family and really tried to keep that balance. But I've seen a lot of casualties. I've seen people who are on the road all the time, my contemporaries who said, the only thing that really means anything to me is this 2.5 hours on stage, and the rest of my life is hell. And I sure don't want to live that way. It's hard.
And that is more the rule than the exception.
I think so. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Is it hard to maintain the balance? I mean, do you have to constantly work at it
Yes,
to not get caught up in the other part of the life?
yes, because when a performer is successful, they become to many people a piece of meat, and the sharks start attacking. Well, I'll take a piece of your arm and a piece of your leg, and you really have to fight to stand up for what you need for your existence. And a lot of artists are maybe not grounded. They're sensitive to the point where all they think about is their work, and they're up on some other level. And if they're lucky, they have a good manager who helps them do that. If they're unlucky, they have a manager who is actually one of the sharks. And I've been, again, very fortunate in that I really do have a sense of where my feet belong, and it's right on the ground. But I have a little of my head in the clouds, too.
Does your political involvement help you keep your feet on the ground?
Most definitely. But again, to a point, there has to be a balance. I am involved in politics only insofar as it helps to make the world a better place and get other people involved and caring about taking control of their lives. At the same time, I don't want to be doing this all the time. I need to be, by myself with my husband on the ranch, working there, milking goats, growing the garden, and we're doing some nice work there, too. We're restoring the old buildings and restoring the pastures back to where they're grazable again, and I need to do that, too.
How about drugs?
I don't do drugs. I never have done drugs. I have encouraged people not to do drugs, and I think I understand why so many of my contemporaries do them.
Why?
Because they feel they need an escape, and drugs are available, particularly cocaine. It's all over the place. It's even all over the place in remote areas of the country. And
Do people just assume that you obviously have drug involvement just because you're in the business you're in? Is that just an automatic assumption that people make?
Not about me. I think my life's work and the way I've conducted my life has been, and my music, has expressed clearly to people that I am not involved with drugs and that I don't condone it, and I don't have that problem, really.
Well, you're most gracious to talk with us tonight. We appreciate the opportunity, and we're going to end with a little bit more of what you had for the students here yesterday. Thank you very much.
All right, my pleasure.
The funding for this program is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the Friends of 4, 10, and 12.